Hey guys, Ted and I are out here scouting some public land today, and we wanted to talk to you about some winter scouting tips that you can use in your area. If you're new to bow hunting and you're trying to figure out spots to go hunting, the winter time can be a great time to get out and scout. As you all can tell, there's deer tracks everywhere right through here. There's a bunch of them going right down through here that we cut as we were driving down the road, essentially. What we're going to do now is start following some of these tracks back in there, see what they lead to, because I'm assuming we're going to find even more deer sign, you know, beds, old rubs, and start to kind of piece together a little bit of that information and then tell you what we can do with it from there. While we're on the subject of tracks, I'll kind of show you a bunch of fresh examples here and what you can learn from them. You can see here that these tracks are splayed out in the back and pointed this direction. That means that that deer is headed that direction. Right here's a good example where it's went into the snow and it's actually got dew claw prints here in the back where it went in. That means that deer's going that way. But what I'm assuming is that there's a bedding area up there that those deer are coming from, and they're headed out towards some ag fields that are over here to the north of us to feed. So we're gonna go up in there, see if we can find some fresh beds in the snow, maybe some old sign from last fall as well that they would have left during the rut, during hunting season. All right, Ted and I have been coming up this hill. Right now we can still see the Hummer down there at the road, but it's a good 300-400 yards away. And we're following these tracks back up into some of this thicker cover. We found a rub right here on this tree. But this tells us a number of things. We got fresh tracks in the snow right here, which means that deer are using these trails right now. But the rub tells us that deer are also using this general area in the fall when you can hunt them. And I'm sure some of you have been wondering throughout this video, like, what good does winter sign do me right now? But it actually shows you a lot, especially when you find it in conjunction with the past fall's sign like this. Now we're out here hoping to pick up a shed or two as well, but you know, more so trying to learn the lay of the land. This is a great time to do it because there's no foliage on right now. You can see much better, and all of that sign, like I mentioned before, is preserved. So as we're going along these trails and stuff too, another good tip is to use some sort of mapping application with your smartphone or your GPS or whatever, and then mark a lot of these spots so that you don't forget about them. You know, this spot right here, we got a rub here, we got another rub up there. We've seen an increase in overall deer traffic in the snow in the last 100 yards as we've got up into this thicker ridge. So it's going to be a spot that we would mark on the map as a potential location to hunt next fall. That's the biggest problem that most people find when they're hunting public land is like, well, how do I find deer to hunt? And if you get out during this time of year and you do some scouting in the snow, it can really help speed that process up for you. We followed these tracks up here. We found our first beds. There's one right here. There's one right by Greg over there, and there's another one over here. Probably a family group of does or something that's bedded on this hillside, watching these ridges down here below. But we got to this point by following all those tracks that we found at the road. And as we've come back through here, you know, as we got back up into some of that thicker stuff, we started seeing more tracks, more deer travel in general, and more rubs. Now we're into the bedding area a little bit. So you can kind of see how they've layered themselves back in here. You don't have near as much of this sign up next to the road where there's human pressure, but as you get back in here away from that a little bit, you start to be able to understand like where they're bedding. The one thing that's given me confidence is that we found a fair amount of sign that was left here from last fall. Those rubs we know were made here after those bucks shed their velvet last fall. And when it comes time to hunt this area again next fall, if you're uncomfortable with coming all the way up in here and getting right in the bedding area, if you're scared that you're going to spook all the deer out of the country, then you can try setting up there at the road, like that original crossing that we found. You could set up there first. If you don't have any success, then you'll move back a little bit further. We're probably, what would you say, 500-600 yards from the car, and we've found 2 or 3 spots along these trails where we could set up. So as you're going into next season, think about a spot like this. Do your winter scouting right now. Get your homework done. As you saw, the further we came in, and right up there we're finding those rubs, we're seeing an increase in the amount of droppings that we're seeing in the snow, and it's just obvious that this thicker cover back in here is where they've been spending the majority of their time since that snow fell. what probably is happening is they're going down, crossing that road and heading up to the north to some ag fields. They're crossing that thing at dark or at night. But by backtracking them in here, we found out a little more information about this area just because of the fresh snow.